Hello and welcome to Radio Free Mind. This is Daniel, and I wanted to give you an introduction to Radio Free Mind and a brief overview of the kind of things we'll explore, both by myself and with guests, over a period of time. The main thing I want to focus on is a higher view of life than one usually gets on television and even a lot of podcasts. I want to focus on things above politics and the mundane. That's well covered by other people. But I want to focus on a more long-term view and a rather critical view of the way things have been going for, say, the last couple thousand years. Well, that's a big subject, so it's going to take more than one podcast, I guess. My basic view is that government itself is the problem. So focusing on whether Hillary or Bill or any of the other candidates will save us, I think that's a waste of time. Certainly during my lifetime, and I've lived quite a while by now, I've seen that politicians are not there for us. Even in this so-called land of the free, home of the brave, it's getting to be land of the fee, home of the slave. We're not far from that. Yes, it's less bad than most other countries, but if you look at what's actually controlling things right now, it's really getting worse. There's more Big Brother. The economy's going in the tank, regardless of what they say, because they keep changing how they measure the economy. And thus, it makes it seem rosy when they're talking about it, but when you go out and live it, I think you'll agree, things are worse now than they were 20 years ago for sure, and 50 years ago, really. We're still on the brink of war every day. There's a new enemy all the time around the corner. And all these things are put forth to us by government that's supposed to represent us. They're calling themselves our leaders, and really, they're supposed to be our servants. They're supposed to do the will of the people. They're supposed to implement our thoughts and desires of what's needed, not their own, for their own benefit. I have a guest here who's not going to say much, but I've got to keep him off parts of the keyboard. It's my little bird, Jasper. Come here, Jasper. Up. I want you to see him. He's a good boy. He just gets into a lot of things, so he has to stay busy and away from the keyboard. He's kind of our mascot here at Radio Free Mind. So, what does that leave us with? If politicians aren't going to save us, and they're the main danger that we face, what can we do? Well, luckily, a lot of things have been done over the last 1,000 or so years that have not involved government and have still solved problems. And if you're going to ask me a question like, who will build the roads? Well, who builds them now? It's not government. Government just takes money from us, steals land from other people, and then pays the same people that would build the roads under any circumstances, the engineers and construction people. They just pay them and make sure that their favorite guys get the contracts. So what we're going to do is take away the middleman of government and do it ourselves. Now, how could this be done? Well, for hundreds of years, even in this country, the United States, we've had things called co-ops. And there have been co-ops to build roads, there have been co-ops for schools, co-ops for electricity, co-ops for telephone, co-ops for the internet, co-ops for providing water and sewage, and even certain industries like milling grain and distributing it. So if they can do all those things, and in fact co-ops are now international and are even beyond borders, if they can do that, they can certainly solve our little problems. When it comes to things like education, people were getting educated long before the government got into it. That happened a little after Lincoln's time, is when it started. And really, as other people have discussed in great detail, and I'll put some of those links in the show notes, that it's really based on the Prussian model, which was designed to produce compliant, class-based people. So if you were in the upper class, you were groomed to take charge of things, and if you were in the lower classes, you were groomed to follow orders and build things and make things and go home and don't complain. And if you have any kids in school right now, I'm sure that's what you're seeing, that they're being subjugated more and more. I was raised in the 50s, and it was bad enough then, believe me. I got sent out of the classroom once for suggesting all the continents look like they fit together. I hope that teacher lived long enough to hear the explanation of Continental Drift. So, given all those things and the potential of co-ops, we're going to explore here various ways of using them and a little bit about what's wrong with the way it's being done now, just for those of you who might be new to these concepts and where your grade school brainwashing is still fresh in your mind, as far as without government there would be chaos and war and dog eat dog and no roads and no fresh water and children would be slaves. So we're going to paint a more realistic view of the future and how to get there. So I hope you'll join us for our next podcast, and I hope you enjoy them. And be sure and put your comments below. I'll, of course, repeat the best ones and answer them on the next podcast. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.